Back on the SportsMax Zone, a captaincy stint that started with a two-test series away to Sri Lanka in 2015 has ended ahead of a two-test home series against the same opponents in 2021. After 11 victories, 5 draws and 21 defeats in 37 tests in which he served as captain, Jason Holder has been sacked. His replacement, fellow Barbadian and close friend Kraigg Braithwaite, Braithwaite led the side to a surprise 2-0 series win over host Bangladesh last month. Braithwaite, who has captained the West Indies in 7 tests, leads a 13-man squad, which includes Holder and Darren Bravo, the only 2 players in the unit who did not tour Bangladesh. The rest of the squad reads Vice-Captain Jermaine Blackwood, Nkrumah Bonner, John Campbell, Rakeem Cornwall, Joshua De Silva, Shannon Gabriel, Alzari Joseph, Kyle Mears, Kimar Roach and Jamel Warrican. There is no place for former Vice-Captain Roston Chase, who has to make do with a place among the reserves. Neither was there a place for Shamar Brooks. Head of selectors Roger Harper and Captain Braithwaite spoke at a press conference on Friday.
You know, the mantle and the captaincy is being passed from Jason to Kraigg. I want to say that, you know, we must appreciate what Jason has done as captain. You know, he came in at a very young age and took the captaincy at a time when the team was a little unsettled. And, you know, he grew with the job and performed creditably. He's had his moments of success. And, you know, he's grown as a player as well to become the leading all-rounder in the world. And I really think that Jason is a very integral part of the Test team and West Indies cricket going forward. You realize that he plays all 3 formats. And I think as well that, you know, it's an opportunity now for him to really focus on taking his game to an even higher level. And I think that with him at his best and with Kraigg now with the captaincy, it's an opportunity for the team to move forward.
For me, it's just, you know, a continuation of what we did in Bangladesh. I thought the attitude, you know, we showed practice sessions and on the field, you know, I think that was key. So for me, as a leader, you know, it's to lead from the front, and, you know, for us to keep that same attitude. You know, I see that going forward. I mean, obviously you want to win games, but I think once we be disciplined and keep that attitude, that will be the key, you know, going forward.
So to help us discuss the latest developments with the West Indies Test team, we are joined by international commentator Fazer Mohammed, all the way from Trinidad and Tobago. Faz, welcome to the SportsMax Zone. It does appear, what we've seen in the past 24 hours from Cricket West Indies, that Bangladesh tour has triggered a lot of the thought process into what has happened, not only with the captaincy change, but also with the Test team.
I agree with you to an extent as far as the composition of the team itself, but I got the feeling, Lance, that the decision about Jason Holder probably would have been cemented during the regional Super 50 because I don't get the sense that there was that almost knee-jerk reaction because the West Indies had won that test series with Kraigg Braithwaite as captain. Yes, he'd done a good job and so on. But Holder, if he was still in the reckoning, didn't help his cause by the manner in which he led the Barbados Pride because they really struggled. He appeared to be struggling as well. He didn't seem to be the same sort of motivated, hungry sort of individual. And you just got that feeling that he looked jaded, he looked tired, maybe he looked fed up with all of the cricket that he's had to play virtually non-stop. So I take your point about the Bangladesh success influencing the decision significantly, and as far as the composition of the team, that's quite obvious. But when it comes down to the captaincy, if there were any lingering doubts, I think the experience of the regional Super 50 would have tipped the scales against Jason Holder.
Yeah, well, it's very obvious from what we saw in Bangladesh and from the pronouncements of the coach or the chairman of selectors, Roger Harper, in the past few hours. There was a lot of magic that happened in Bangladesh. Enough magic to suggest that there is this newfound passion and commitment and a culture within the team that so impressed everyone. I say that to say that Kraigg Braithwaite, before going to Bangladesh, had not been seen as a West Indies captain, had he? We've been seeing him for 10 years now in international cricket. The 5 times he captained the West Indies before going to Bangladesh, he lost all 5 of them. So from that perspective, how solid is Kraigg Braithwaite a captain for the future? I ask that, acknowledging that he did really well in Bangladesh, though.
He did extremely well. And let's recall also that he was removed as vice captain for the tour of New Zealand. Roston Chase had taken his place. So clearly at that point, he wasn't anywhere near the reckoning as being a West Indies captain. But different circumstances, COVID-19 has brought about a situation where he was thrust into the captaincy. Neither Holder was there, no Roston Chase, nor Darren Bravo, who you might say would have been an outsider for some sort of consideration. And he responded. And as, again, when you look at it, we talk about the magic of Bangladesh. On that last day of the first test, leading 395, it all came down to that outstanding innings from Kyle Mayers. Then in the second test match, he brought himself on at a critical stage on what proved the last day to take a couple of important wickets, and the West Indies won by 17 runs. So it's on these sometimes narrow margins that careers can be built. So yes, it remains to be seen now with the series coming up against Sri Lanka, if it is that he's really this imaginative captain, this intuitive type of thinker, because previously his captaincy was to be seen as phlegmatic as his batting. So whether it's the relationship with Phil Simmons, with everyone else in the team who buys in to someone like a Kraigg Braithwaite, who's really soft-spoken, who doesn't really impose himself, it might be a number of factors, Lance. But I think it's way too early to talk about possibly the extending magic of a Kraigg Braithwaite and that Bangladesh series, because as we know, time will tell its own story. And when it comes to West Indies cricket, the story can be very, very varied.
Faz, if we are to look at the test team on paper, is there anybody that, that has been listed that you would not have included, and why not?
I think that the team basically selects itself. When you really look at it, the only issues really would have been with the number 3 position that really wasn't taken up during the Bangladesh series, and therefore Darren Bravo would have got the opportunity. Jason Holder walks back into the test team. There's no question about that whatsoever. The other situation would have been Roston Chase, but you've got Jomel Warrican. You've got Rakeem Cornwall, who performed so well in Bangladesh, so obviously there's no space for him. Maybe there might have been a question over John Campbell, but Campbell performed extremely well in the trial match. He got 100 and a 50, so he holds on to his spot. And of course, the bowlers, they were the same bowlers who went to Bangladesh and enjoyed that success of taking the series 2-0. So from what I see in the squad, and even with the reserves, there's no real surprise from my end as far as the squad selected for the first test.
No Shamar Brooks, a lot of questions around that selection. A good decision or not?
Again, I suppose it will be justified by the decision, but in the end, you've got to also show faith in those who have performed. And let's look at it again. It's not about victimizing players who didn't go to Bangladesh. I don't think that's the case at all. If it was victimization, Darren Bravo wouldn't be there, Jason Holder would be there. Is it subtle victimization of Shamar Brooks? I think not, because you've got players who performed. You can't simply ignore players who might not have been in the reckoning, but performed. They are now at the head of the queue. So you've got Nkrumah Bonner, you've got, of course, Kyle Mayers, who had a double failure in the second test match. So he certainly will have to deliver from the first point of asking, basically, or Shamar Brooks could be on his heels. So I think you've got to reward players who've performed at the latest time of asking, if you recognize that there's a future with them. If it was a one and done sort of situation, well, that's a different story. So it's really up to Shamar Brooks to step up his game when next given the opportunity, if that arises.
Fazer, the time has run out, and we have to put this one to you, though. When you consider some of the cricketers who've been installed as test captain before their 23rd birthday, and I use 23 as a benchmark because that's the age at which Jason Holder became West Indies captain. Graham Smith, the South African, Javed Miandad, maybe the verdict is split on how successful he was as a captain, but he was 22 when he was appointed. Stephen Fleming from New Zealand, and let's put another Pakistani in there. Waqar Younis was 22 when he was appointed test captain. Against those guys and what they went on to achieve as captains, compare Jason Holder to them and also consider Jason Holder in a vacuum. Was the experiment for Jason Holder to be built into this captain and leader that the West Indies wanted, was that a failed experiment, you would say?
No, not a failed experiment at all, because I think the context of West Indies cricket is very different to some of the other jurisdictions. Maybe it's more like Pakistan, where they tend to be sort of mercurial in what they do. With other nations, you tend to see a more systematic approach to things. And I think Holder has been harshly and unfairly treated in many respects in the early stages of his captaincy, given the responsibilities that he had to bear. Let's not forget he won the Wisdom Trophy back for the West Indies in 2019. At a personal level, he can really do more than what he's been able to do. Has he looked jaded and looked almost disinterested over the last 6 months or so? Definitely. But I think you can't just simply take it in the isolation of Jason Holder and the results. In the same way that we look at other captains over our history, you've got to look at it in the bigger picture, in the context of the turbulence going on off the field in West Indies cricket during his time as captain. He was really thrown at the deep end. I don't think it's any disgrace to talk about his work and the work rate that he's put in as a West Indies captain, both as an individual and with his team.
Faz, as usual, always great getting your take on West Indies cricket issues. We'll be in touch. So
Take care.
Fazer Mohammed from Trinidad and Tobago. Mariah and George, a lot of discussion in cricket circles today about these decisions. Jason Holder, as Fazer just mentioned, as far as he's concerned, not to be ashamed about his tenure as leadership. There are only two West Indies captains in the past that have won more test matches than Jason Holder, Vivian Richards and Clive Lloyd. No other West Indies captain in history won more test matches than Jason Holder. And we know that he hasn't been successful because, like most West Indies captains of recent ilk, they have losing records. But the fact is that Kraigg Braithwaite comes in to a job that has been difficult for pretty much everyone since the mid-1990s when the West Indies lost its position. There you see Clive Lloyd with 36 test matches won, Ivy Richards 27, Richie and Jason with 11 each, Brian Lara winning 10 test matches out of the 47 that he captained. So a difficult job for Kraigg Braithwaite, but he comes on the back of a really tremendous outing in Bangladesh.
I would only say, though, that, you know, there are only three, as far as I'm concerned, three men who've captained the West Indies who've been celebrated. The two that you mentioned, that you showed just on the list, who have the wins in their favor, Sir Viv and Clive Lloyd, and Sir Frank Worrell for reasons that are obvious and historical and more than just on-field cricket.
Yeah.
So from that perspective, I don't think Jason Holder has anything to be ashamed of from the numbers, because it's not as if he's among the worst West Indies captains, because the numbers don't lie and other things don't lie. I think, though, that this captaincy is something that Jason Holder didn't want. I think you spoke about disinterest and body language and everything. I am convinced that this is something that the young man almost saw as a poisoned chalice. And his body language communicated a man who wasn't passionate about captaincy, passionate about his cricket because he wants to get better. And he has gotten better over the year. Year after year, Jason Holder has gotten better as a test cricketer. I think the captaincy is something he didn't want. The opportunity presented itself by virtue of not going to Bangladesh and the circumstances which followed. The perfect scenario for the West Indies selectors to say, okay, let us relieve you of this responsibility. Come forward, Kraigg. It's your mantle to carry.
I'm actually not okay with this knee-jerk reaction, and that's what I'm calling it. I actually think that, you know, if Kraigg Braithwaite does not go on to do what they expect of him, we will be calling for his head very soon. And I feel like, you know, it's very unfair for Jason Holder. And I like to look at the powerhouses in cricket. And when you look at India, remember when Ajinkya Rahane won recently against Australia, everybody was saying, you know what, get rid of Virat Kohli and let's keep Ajinkya Rahane at the helm. By us removing Jason Holder, I feel as if, you know, it points to the selection panel as well. Like, you know, just because somebody wins quickly, you just change the person at the top. I just hope that Kraigg Braithwaite does well, and of course I have no problem, you know, with him at the helm. My only issue is that we're moving too quickly and moving too rashly, and I felt as if Jason Holder should have gotten some more time.
Yeah, so of course, Test cricket coming up after the ODIs end. The West Indies just completing a narrow victory in the second one-day international over Sri Lanka, which means that they've taken a winning 2-0 lead in the series. But we've got a question for you, which we want you to respond to, and then we'll get your voice notes later on in the show. Do you agree with the decision to sack Jason Holder as West Indies captain? Send us the voice note to be played later on the show this Friday.